Today I'm going to make a little video about some flowers because, well, I'm about to leave Missouri, and so I wanted to document some of the flowers that I've seen here in Missouri before I depart. Let's go. So here we are at the first set of flowers. So this first flower here, this is chicory. And this is probably the most famous flower from right around here. This is sometimes called blue daisies, blue dandelions, blue weeds, blue sailors, ragged sailors, coffee weed, endives, and bunk. Those are all names for this type of flower. And you can see just the whole field full of them here. Flowers are only open from about 8 o'clock in the morning till about 3 in the afternoon, but they're pretty and symmetrical flower. Native to Europe, they're naturalized in Asia and Africa and Australia as well. These chicory are used for a bunch of different things, and they're one of the oldest flowers that's been recorded being used. They were recorded all the way back in ancient Egypt. Ancient Romans wrote about them. Horace, leading lyrical poet in the time of Augustus, said that these flowers, he called them endives, were one of the 3 foods that he ate. They're occasionally used as a salad. These little leaves right down here, on these chicory, they're kind of small, but other chicory species or other subspecies of chicory, they can have larger leaves. It can be pretty tasty, I guess. It has been used as a coffee substitute as well. The roots and leaves can be boiled to make a coffee substitute. In France, they typically mix about 40% chicory with 60% coffee bean. The Dutch also use them. They've been used as an ingredient in stouter beers. They actually inspired the idea of the blue flower in Romanticism. The blue flower is a symbol of desire and love and like longing for eternity. And it's one of the most common field flowers in our fields in Missouri in July. Interesting bit of European folklore about the chicory plant was that if you used a golden utensil to cut the chicory flower at noon or midnight on St. James Day while being completely silent, then the chicory would stay alive and you could use it to open locked doors, and it would also grant you invisibility. And you can see there's some bees in here pollinating it. It's mostly pollinated by like bees and wasps, but they do draw in butterflies as well. Let's go ahead and find another flower. These purple ironweeds over here. These are actually Missouri ironweed. Let's get a look at them. These particular ones right here, most of them are kind of curled up, and these grow mostly in overgrazed fields because cows just don't really eat them, and so they're considered a grower. The more you graze the field, the more these ironweeds will show up. They will spread through their rhizomes in the dirt, and so they'll keep growing even bigger and bigger. I'm going to scoot up to the next field to see if there's even more of the Missouri ironweed. So, the Missouri ironweed is native to central and eastern central United States. And the things that make this ironweed distinct from other ironweeds here in the US is that they have a greater number of disc florets per flower than other ironweeds do. They also will have a little bit of hair on the stem, which you can just kind of barely see, but it's like this little fuzz all up and down the stem here and on the underside of the leaf. Their distinctive marker. These were used by the Native Americans as a pain reliever. They would just chew on the root of ironweed. There's a type of ironweed that grows in Africa that they've done studies on and found that it helps prevent tumors. The entire ironweed family has some tumor inhibition properties. It's called ironweed because it turns this kind of rusty color. The seeds, after these flowers curl up, they will be kind of that same rusty color as the leaves, like a decaying piece of metal. Also very highly attractive to butterflies, just like the chicory. So the next flower is Queen Anne's lace, and a couple different varieties in here. So there's Queen Anne's lace, there's the American wild carrot, or rattlesnake weed it's sometimes called, and there's also poison hemlock. And you do not want to be consuming poison hemlock, but both of those other carrot varieties are edible. Look for the difference between poison hemlock and Queen Anne's lace by looking for a smooth stem on the poison hemlock. It will be very smooth, no fur or hair at all, and the flowers up here will be kind of purple and red splotched. On a Queen Anne's lace, they will have a slightly fuzzy stem. And how we're going to tell whether it's American or European wild carrot is we're going to take a look right here in the center of one of these flowers. I want you to look at this. This is something that only appears on Queen Anne's lace. Right there in the middle, it has just a little cluster of those dark, like royal purple petals. People have disagreed on what those do, but they think maybe they mimic like a beetle in the middle or some kind of bug. And so it'll help draw in the pollinators and scare off the things that would come and eat the flowers. So that is a Queen Anne's lace right there. Now, for the American wild carrot, it is going to have no red in the center. That one right there, no red. And typically American wild carrots are smaller than the Queen Anne's lace are. The root is smaller and the flowers are a little bit smaller. Queen Anne's lace doesn't necessarily have that red flower on every single cluster, but it will have it somewhere on the plant. So if you should look at all of the flowers if you want to see for sure whether you're looking at rattlesnake weed or Queen Anne's lace. This for sure is rattlesnake weed. There's no red florets on any of them. Some of the uses of those flowers: the Queen Anne's lace is a weed, and here in Missouri it's a noxious weed, and they're actively trying to get rid of it because it is really hard to kill, and they can even be a fire hazard in the fall when the seeds are very dry. They will catch on fire very quickly, like this right here. That's our seed clusters up on the top, and if it dries out, it will burn up very quick, like a little fireball. Queen Anne's lace has been used as a contraceptive in the past, used to make white dye, and it's the predecessor to domesticated carrots. The American wild carrot, I never really saw any domestication, but it was used by the Native Americans. So Queen Anne's lace is Daucus carota, and the Daucus pusillus is the rattlesnake weed, and that is also still edible, and the natives would use it to treat fever. They would also eat it by just boiling it, and so those are found in North and South America. The next flower that we're going to look for here is in the next field over, so head up that way. So next thing is a sunflower, and this specifically is an ashy sunflower. It's that name from this kind of fur on the stem there. Kind of makes it look gray. It's also called a hairy sunflower, and this is a sunflower species native to the Americas, widespread across the United States and Canada. The very flower that the Native Americans used in all of their ceremonies and stuff. The sunflowers presented the sun, and they'd make them into body paint. They could also be used by the native tribes for medicinal purposes, treating chest pain and pulmonary problems. They are this beautiful bright yellow color, and they form very big seeds. Lots of people eat sunflower seeds. They are used to make sunflower oil, can be ground up into a flour that you can use to make bread. The sunflower is commercialized mostly for the oil, which is used in paints and soaps and candles. And even though it was first domesticated by the Native Americans, it was the Russians who started commercializing it. And it wasn't until the 1920s that they started farming them here in the United States. They also attract goldfinches, which are my favorite bird. It's pretty cool. The very next flower that we're going to look at is right here next to them. This little white flower right here, it's got 5 points. That is a Carolina horse nettle. Pretty common in the southern United States, southern central United States. So here's a flower, and here's some unripe fruit that's growing on there right now. That's what they get their other name from, which is the devil's tomato, or the apple of Sodom. Those little tiny fruits are toxic. And fun fact, Carolina horse nettle is not actually a nettle. It's a nightshade masquerading as a nettle. So nightshades include things like tomatoes and potatoes. So it's pretty aptly named the devil's tomato because it's in that same family. And in fact, if you break the leaves open on one of these nettles, they do smell like a potato. But let's go back to some of these berries and take a look at them. Right now, they're green. Nothing's really going to be trying to eat them. But come this fall, they'll be this bright yellow color. And these things are super duper toxic to mammals. Quails and turkey do eat the fruit, and they're just fine with it. But if a mammal goes to chewing on one of these, they will get fever and headache, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. That can all occur just from eating one of the leaves. So the least toxic part is the leaf. And if you eat that, it can give you all of those symptoms if you eat enough of it. But if you eat a berry, you are going to experience some abdominal pain, circulatory, depression, and then finally, if you eat enough of them, death. This has been used for medicinal purposes in the past. The toxin that's in there did have some uses up until about the 1940s, but these things are pretty bad to just consume from out in the wild. Cows and horses do consume these occasionally, and they do die from it. You do have to eat quite a bit. A cow would have to eat about 5 to 6 pounds of the nettle to actually die from it, but they commonly eat enough to get sick. These things will grow in your garden. They got a big old taproot, so they're pretty hard to pluck, and it does not feel very good. It's not going to kill you to grab it and get pricked, but it does not feel very pleasant. We're going to go and try to look for 2 more flowers that I have gathered some facts about here in the field. And the next one that we're going to look for is the St. John's wort. So here we go, heading on to the next stop. Okay, so St. John's wort right here, native to Europe and West Asia. This is a very pretty little flower. Look at those petals. Very easy to spot, very pretty. Now, if you go to look up St. John's wort, the first thing that's going to come up, if you just type in St. John's wort, the first thing that's going to come up is a whole bunch of medical papers and like WebMD and that kind of thing. St. John's wort is named after St. John the Baptist from the Bible because these things usually bloom around June 24th, and that is the feast day of St. John the Baptist in the Catholic Church. The uses of St. John's wort that I'm showing right here, which this is spotted St. John's wort or imperforate St. John's wort because the leaves here are not perforated. They're kind of a smooth, rounded leaf. So the main uses for this is treating depression. There has been significant scientific evidence that St. John's wort is effective on mood disorders and can treat mild to moderate depression. The other things that actually have some scientific support that it can help with is hot flashes from menopause, and it can help you deal with the emotional distress caused by extreme focus on a physical condition. So if you're really worried about a physical condition, St. John's wort can help relieve that. Fascinating. The next flower that we're going to go look for, it is almost all the way gone. It's a little late in the year for it, so there's only one spot in these fields that I've seen it, and we're going to go there right now. All right, here it is, the last little piece of butterfly milkweed. Now earlier, this was everywhere. This stuff was all over the sides of the road, and you could find big old clusters of it. So this is called butterfly weed. It's occasionally called butterfly love, flux root, Canada root, and chigger flower. I guess just because of the red color of the leaves, they kind of look like the chiggers. Very good to bring in butterflies, obviously, but not really pollinated by butterflies. Mostly pollinated by bees and wasps. Also does attract hummingbirds. They do take quite a while from first being planted to flowering. It takes 2 to 3 years for them to ever flower for the first time. The uses of this plant include the Native Americans and early pioneers using them. Again, the roots were what they were after. They would take those roots and boil them into a tea, and that was used to treat respiratory illness and diarrhea. The seed pods that these make, they have a downy fur, which you'll see in the fall, that can be used to make candle wicks. Probably my favorite on the list here. But with that, that is all of the field flowers that I saw in the past couple days. There's a few more here and there that I didn't mention. There's some jewel weed, and there's some of these ditzy daisies here and there. But I might make another video in the future on those. But there you have it for today. Some of the most interesting flower facts for the fields of Missouri. Thank you for watching.